Hyoubu Kyousuke was once a major in the army. He joined to put his powers to good use in order to help humanity. However, after the military received the prediction that he would cause a total clash between normal people and investors, he was shot by his most trusted superior after being betrayed by his own country. Founded a criminal esper organization called Pandora. People who possess superpower are called espers, and are able to use a wide variety of ESP abilities, however require training to be able to properly control them and integrate into normal society. They come in varying degrees of strength. Categorized on a scale of 1 to 7, there are hundreds of thousands of espers all over the world that are level 1 to 3, but only 3% of espers make up levels 4 to 7. Here was the most powerful high-level multi-power, desperate and desires to create a world where espers can live freely, or ruling it. It all starts when Hyoubu surrenders to the military and is sent to a special esper prison. Upon his arrival, Hyoubu meets a guy named Andy, an esper prisoner who somehow does not have any powers. After creating some commotion, both are sent to confinement, where Hyoubu offers Andy a chance to join his side, which he accepts. Upon helping him escape the prison during mealtime, the cook puts some drugs in Hyoubu's still, but he gives it to Andy instead. During a brawl with another prisoner, and he is unable to fight back due to the drug's effect, he gets punched in the stomach repeatedly and collapses, and he wakes up in the surgery room outside the prison in this free by Hill, who explains to him that the prison is being used as a site for illegal esper experiments. Together, they reach the place where young esper child called Yugiri is being held. The prison warden sends a monster to attack them, created by fusing several esper body parts tog ether, but it ends up being destroyed when Hyoubu deactivates his own limiter, unlocking his true power. In the end, Andy and Yugiri, picked up by the other members of Pandora, and Andy is welcomed aboard their base of operations, the ocean liner ship called Catastrophe. However, Annie is revealed to be a spy sent to infiltrate the organization. As he makes contact with his superiors, a week has passed since and he boarded the Catastrophe. The crew learns of his ability to negate all the SP abilities, and that espers near him may produce symptoms such as headaches, dizziness, or to fix. A man called Maggie, who is one of Panda's executives, is suspicious of any due to issues with his past and even or so, as they cannot read his mind with their USP abilities. Panda is to make a trade smuggling weapons with a certain mafia boss named Carlo, who is a friend of Hero's from World War II. We then discover that Hero, who is actually 80 years old, but he uses his abilities to regenerate himself to keep his youth. Shortly after arriving, Panda is attacked by the mafia they were to trade with. He gave orders to Andy to shoot Carlo when he gives the signal, but upon giving the signal he was unable to shoot, having already calculated this cub and covered his disguise clones, and kills Carlo. But it turns out it was actually a robotic vehicle. Carlos is actually a very high-level esper, but he is no match for Hyoubu, who slaughters him quickly. Here will give Sandy a limiter to decrease the effect of his abilities, which makes him susceptible to having his mind read. Maggie tells Yugiri to read in his mind, but Yugiri informs Maggie that she will not do it unless he who himself orders her to. Meanwhile, a man named Minamoto, who is the commander of a special esper team called the Children, arrives at the Principality of Monaco with his friend Sikak. The Children is a special team formed by Babel, which consists of 3 Japanese level 7 espers. They have signed a contract with the government. Babel is an organization that aims to work with that spurs to give them an opportunity to have a home. However, it is funded and supported by the government, and as a result Pander and Babel could never be on the same side. So they turned rivals. The Minamoto and Saki attend a party held by the Princess of Monarch called Sophie for esper organizations from several countries, where they spot Hyoubu when some members of Pandora, after being confronted by the Hyoubu and his party, flee undetected. And some time later it is revealed that the princess is also missing, while Sakaki and Minamoto try to access the contents of a USB flash drive that Sakaki snatched from. Here was pocket. Sophie is seen under the custody of Pandora, but it is revealed that it is part of their plan to protect the princess from an assassination plot by Yugiri's request, as Sophie becomes friends with Yugar. Why they decide to take a walk around the city escorted by Andy. Meanwhile, Hyoubu makes use of mass hypnosis while simultaneously feeding their enemies with false info about Sophie's whereabouts. To lure them into a trap. On the other hand, Sophie and Yugiri come to an abandoned orphanage where the princess remembers that she had met Yugiri before as one of the orphans being raised there. Before she disappeared mysteriously, they're found by the ringleader behind the assassination plot, who wants to get rid of her because of her Esper protecting policy, but Minamoto, having previously deduced the enemy's identity upon analyzing the files, brings the police with him soon after the criminal shoots itself, but she is protected by Andy, who takes the hit, and Hyoubu disarms him before he is arrested. Sophie offers herself to take care of Yugiri, but she'd rather keep living with Hyoubu and the others instead, and bids farewell to her as the catastrophe approaches the coast of Japan. Andy is searching the ship under his superior's orders when it is attacked by the members of Babel, who send the children to infiltrate it. Here we confront a member of the children called Kyoru by himself. Meanwhile, Andy is detained by the other two women who are part of the children called Oishiho, who steal the ship's master key from the squirrel and use it to hack the main computer. Once regrouped, the members of Panda started counterattack with Andy using his second desperate power to subdue Furgenko, who is the founder of Babel. His second power allows him to temporarily disable the abilities of someone he touches, and he goes on to destroy the hack's control, while the rest of the group take on the children in the last effort to capture the catastrophe. Kyoru and Shiho combine their powers with their limiter's triple boost feature to restrain it, but they are repelled by Hyoubu when he unlocks his own emitter, giving them the chance to escape. As Minamoto comforts the girls, were inconsolable for leading here with escape, he ponders with Fujiko about an ominous precognition they learned regarding him with the catastrophe undergoing repairs. After their clash with the children, Andy is tasked by Maggie to accompany Yugiri is the someone back. Meanwhile, Hyoubu infiltrates a Babel medical facility to perform some exams on his body in secret. While taking you to an amusement park, Andy is approached by Minimum and Furzenko, who reveal to him that they know he's a spy under the US government and ask for his cooperation to apprehend Hyoubu. Sakaki, he keeps watching, who is exposed as an Esper after she uses her powers to help a lost boy feeling rejected by those around her. A desperate Yugiri loses control over her powers, igniting a disastrous hypnotic trance that is contained when Andy comes to help. Soon after, their companions appear and bring them to safety. Back at the catastrophe, a birthday party is held for Hyoubu, who is hiding the results of the exam, which indicate that he does not have much time left to live. He reminisces about when he was recruited by the US government. He is informed by his superiors that the time has come for him to finish his assignment here, who informs the others that their next mission is to steal a new ECM device developed in the United States, and he then relays the info about the mission to Babel, who agreed to set a trap for Pandora. Although they decide to not take the children with them this time, despite Kyoru protests with Hyoubu, and the other is cornered by Minamoto team, and he takes the opportunity to return to the catastrophe and accomplish his own mission, which is to extract the ship's main defense system, called the Ishigo. Follows soon after, but is halted by Kyoru, who had just learned about an impending plan of destruction of the catastrophe. With this Odi showing signs of fatigue, Hyoubu goes full force against Kyoru, knocking her unconscious, and finds Andy. As he reaches here, she goes chambers, revealing to Andy that he always knew he was a spy here, who claims that now he has no option but to kill him. We didn't get to see a flashback several decades ago. A young Hebrew who had recently lost his father moved to live with Fujiko and her father in Japan sometime later. Both Fujiko and Hyoubu asked by a man called ID Siatom to join the new Esper special unit created under the Japanese army. Fujiko declines, despite ID's claim that the unit's purpose is not to help with Japan's invasions of other nations. Hyoubu was instructed by his late father to refrain from using his powers to avoid being used as a living weapon. However, sometime later both human physical accept the offer and join the army. Some months later, Cuban project get themselves involved in an incident with a naval officer, and the army discusses the possibility of having the as per unit disbanded. But ID proposes a ban instead should they manage to defeat the Japanese Navy state-of-the-art fighter aircraft. Called Zero, the whole incident should be forgotten. ID chooses Hyoubu to represent the US per unit in the duel with the Navy fighter, but the words of his father that he should refrain from using his powers keep haunting him as he trains for the upcoming match. On the day of the duel, it is revealed that the pilot representing the Navy is the same one involved in the incident. He will find himself in a pinch against the enemy, until he finally manages to overcome his fear. ND wins the duel with a direct shot in the cockpit. Soon after, a US submarine is seen pursuing 3 dolphins who contact Hyoubu and the others through VSP, asking for their help. Just before one of the dolphins is killed by a torpedo with the Navy fighters help, the SP unit manage to save the off two and shake off the pursuers. However, the dolphins warn Hyoubu about an ominous fate awaiting him and his companions years later, just after the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. IG informs here that Japan is about to surrender and most of the SP unit is dead. IG has a precognition that he will bring destruction to the world in the future and decides to dispose of him. ID ruthlessly fires Hyoubu, winding him badly, but he somehow manages to survive and strikes back, apparently killing him, and leaves swearing vengeance on the normals who betrayed him and his friends. Andy uses his powers to deactivate Here She Goes cloaking system, exposing the catastrophe to an attack by the US military. While confronting Maggie and the others, Minamoto learns about the situation. Babel's true intention was to apprehend Pander to prevent the attack and allows them to leave to help Hyoubu when the others, with Hyoubu busy confronting dozens of combat drones sent by the US Army. A task force invades the ship and captures Yugiri, and he tries to stop them from taking her away, but his superior shoots him instead and leaves with both Yugiri. Indiana She Goes in his possession, and he awakens soon after, justifying his on skate this is limit or stop the bullet. Meanwhile, Kyoubu feels his body fading away and unlocks his powers to destroy the invading fleet in one fell swoop before losing consciousness, but the catastrophe ends up taking one last shot before it sunk, with everyone aboard having already evacuated the ship except for Hyoubu and Andy. Andy saves Hyoubu from drowning, and the two are rescued by Babel. Jacqueline Sakaki take Kyoubu to the estate to treat him when we discover a girl called Oboro, who is the secretary for the leader of Babel, has the transmitter chip extracted from Andy's body and destroyed by Kyoru's request. She strains Oboro and learns here was location from her, and he convinces the girls to take him with them, and upon arriving at the mansion, Hyoubu asks Andy about the man who contacted them aboard the catastrophe, confirming his suspicions that said man is none other than ID himself, who somehow is still alive. Meanwhile, Sakaki reveals to the girls Hyoubu is dying, and to save his life Kyoru offers herself for a blood transfusion. Now in possession of both Yugiri and Ashigo, ID plans to use them both to avert the Esper Revolution led by Kyoru and Hyoubu is set to occur in the near future, sometime later. Despite till not fully recovered, he believes by himself despite Kyoru's pleas and accepts, and he's offered to accompany him. The two then depart to confront IG and rescue Yugiri. Upon arriving at home, and these former contacts in the government is captured with Hyoubu's help and is forced to take them to the facility where Yugiri is being kept. However, the agent manages to warn Hyoubu's companions about them in secret, and the two arrive just to find that Yugiri is gone. After a brief conversation with ID, he reveals his intention was to use her to kill Kyoru. The two find themselves in an ambush, and they fight to escape until they are cornered by the enemy, just to be rescued in time by Maggie and the others reunited. Once again, the members of Panda's set to New York. Hyoubu realize is that ID's next target is Norman Green, the newly elected mayor, who is a supporter of us for protecting on policies put under some kind of trance. Yugiri kills Maggie and a couple other Pan remembers before she comes across Andy, and he follows Jerry to the site of Green's inauguration but is restrained by the police, just to be rescued by Minamoto and Seiki, who reveals to him that they are working with the city to stop ID's conspiracy to have the new mayor assassinated by an Esper and alter the future. Yugiri goes in for the attack just to be stopped by Andy, and she launches a hypnotic trance that affects everyone in the area except Andy and his allies, starting a riot. As the riot spread through the city, Hyoubu confronts Yugiri to free her mind, but hypnosis makes him confront delusions of his past. until he unlocks his powers, knowing that with his body's condition it may end up killing him. Hyoubu succeeds to rescue Gear, but his powers go haywire and he asks Andy to take her away before they destroy. However, Andy refuses to flee and uses his ability to restrain Hyoubu's powers and save his life as the members of Babel return home and are greeted by Kyoru. When the others, Hyoubu finally comes face to face with ID with the rest of his cohorts already in custody. IG asks Hyoubu would kill him, but he refuses to do so and decides to punish him by erasing all these memories instead, and he decides to find his own way in life and bids farewell to you, Jerry, and the others from Pandro, leaving to parts unknown after having a short meeting with you. And this brings the anime to an end. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on another video. Until next time, take care.